All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Hauling the Mail. I'm your host, Will. My co-host, John, is on the other side. I think, actually, he's on my left side. We're coming out of Martinsville, where my man, Chase Elliott, goes in and steals the win from one Denny Hamlin. We got a lot to talk about today, John. We got the Martinsville race. We got the Hall of Fame stuff. We've got Rockingham coming up. Lots to get to.
It was I love short track racing. I think that's kind of the bread and butter of what NASCAR is all about. And it might not have been the most entertaining racing, kind of similar to last week, at least on Sunday, but I enjoyed it. And Martinsville's probably my favorite track on the schedule, so I always like seeing racing there, and it's one of the few places I like seeing multiple races a year at. So I'll never be disappointed to see it. And like you said, a big win for Chase Elliott. Not conventional in terms of domination, but made the right call, the right moves at the right time, and took advantage of it. So a big win for Hendrick this weekend.
We'll get into it for sure, but it did feel like there was kind of a dichotomy where we had an O'Reilly race that was filled with calamity and issues, and then we got to the Cup Series race that largely was pretty dull and straightforward until we got about midway through the third stage, and then that Chase Elliott and Gustafson decision was kind of what everyone had their eyes on as how that was going to play out for the whole race versus Denny Hamlin, who found a way to choke that away. But so we'll get into that, and then we have Justin Allgaier. He won his third race of the season.
3 of 4, I believe, right?
What's that?
3 of 4, I believe, right? 3 of the last 4?
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of taken over the mantle of the dominant driver of that series. Connor Zilisch last year was that guy, and no one seems to be good enough to kind of dethrone him. There's guys that are fast, but no one's really taking him down. So we'll get into all that, and then, John, we get to jump into the debate that the NASCAR community's been having all week long, and that is the Hall of Fame debate.
Oh, God.
Because nothing really drags down our mood like having a debate about an objective award. But
this was a
do
really fun topic.
Yep,
and by fun, I mean unnecessary.
I'm sure we're not going to land on the same page with that, but that's okay. That's the beauty of it. It's an objective award. So we got plenty of news to get into. We'll go over the nominees today, and you and I will talk them over, and we'll see which ones we think should be voted in. As usual, we have our first class return to sender stuff. We'll have our race picks, which, by the way, we have a winner again this week. We're on fire, John. I think we picked a winner in. I think we picked a winner in 4 or 5 consecutive weeks between the two of us. So
maybe we know what we're talking about.
Let the people decide on that. We certainly can educated guess it, right?
Yeah, we can at least act like we maybe do for now, anyways.
Yeah. So hey, we'll take those leads. Maybe we should start gambling a little bit more, but I know I haven't done too much of that lately.
Need money to gamble.
That's fair, and that's where the people will come in. But for now, we're gonna jump into some hot laps, and then we'll start breaking it down.
Great.
All right. So as we mentioned before, John, Chase Elliott wins his first race of the year. This is the earliest he's won in a season. He's made that point on several interviews. This is also Hendrick Motorsports' first win of the season. There's a lot of discussion all week about, are they lagging behind? Is the body slowing them down? This is later than usual for Hendrick, but and they weren't the dominant car of the day, but a gutsy pit strategy call by Alan Gustafson, and they find themselves with good track position and launch themselves to the lead and hold on to it, and Chase Elliott is the winner. It's his second all-time at Martinsville, which is where he made his Cup Series debut about 11 years ago. It's his 22nd win in the Cup Series, and that's going to put him 4th overall in the standings going into the Easter break. So shout out to my man Chase on that one. We also mentioned it before. Justin Allgaier wins his third race of the season in what was a caution-filled O'Reilly race. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure about
I think it was 9.
I think it was 9 cautions, and I think they ran like 75 caution laps out of 250 total laps.
Oh, I'm going to be talking about the caution laps later. Don't worry.
Yeah, so it was quite the race, but Justin Allgaier gets his 3rd win of the season. It's his 31st overall in the O'Reilly Series, which is also going to be talked about a little bit when we get into the debate over his and other people's Hall of Fame worthiness. So all roads point to this Hall of Fame debate that we're going to have today. So shout out to Justin Allgaier. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, they announced the nominees for this year. It consists of 15 nominees as well as 5 Landmark Award nominees. And the NASCAR Hall of Fame voting panel will meet in person to discuss and vote for the class of 2027 on Tuesday, May 19th. The nominees, and we'll break these down a little more, are as follows. In the modern era ballot, we have Greg Biffle, Neil Bonnet, Tim Brewer, Jeff Burton, Randy Dorton, Ray Elder, Ernie Elliott, Kevin Harvick, Randy LaJoie, and Jack Sprague. In the Pioneer ballot, we have Ray Fox, Harry Hyde, Banjo Matthews, Herb Nabb, Larry Phillips. And the Landmark Award, the nominees are Alvin Hawkins, Lisa France Kennedy, Dr. Joseph Mattioli, Les Richter, and T. Wayne Robertson. So those are this year's Hall of Fame nominees. Like I said, we'll talk about them more in a minute. We talked last week, John, about the Daniel Dye situation where he was suspended by NASCAR for his comments. I forget the driver he was commenting on.
David Malukas.
He was commenting on David Malukas on a Whatnot stream in a derogatory way. So he was suspended pending his completion of sensitivity training. And in the meantime, he resigned. This is how they put it. He was not fired. He was
resign or get fired.
However you want to interpret that's up to you. The official release was he resigned from Colleague Motorsports and the 10 truck. And Colleague further announced a couple days later that Corey LaJoie will be filling in full-time in that 10 truck. And as it relates to this week, because he was slated to drive the 25 truck this week at Rockingham, that will be Ty Dillon now. So Daniel Dye is out at Colleague Racing. He has completed the sensitivity training, and he has been reinstated as of this recording. There's no news if anyone's signing him or giving him a shot or whatnot. But
the other thing about that, too, is now, well, we were going to mention it later, AM Racing, the team where he was doing part-time O'Reilly races, is potentially ceasing to exist as well. So both of his rides are getting burned here. Yeah,
it's not looking too bright for them or for Ford in the series or whatever it is. But so no more Daniel Dye in the 10 truck. That's Corey LaJoie. So if you're a LaJoie guy, you got an opportunity to see him maybe go win some races.
This is the second straight year he's gotten thrust into a role full-time when he wasn't expecting to midway through the season.
But I think for this, last year what you seen with Corey LaJoie was he was kind of fulfilling races to kind of fill out that contract that he had with Spire.
Yeah, because that was the last year of it, I think. But now this is just... I think
now that marriage is kind of separated and he's doing his own thing, and I think Colleague's gonna give him some good support. I'm not sure if he's going to win a race in that truck because obviously the Dodge trucks have a long way to go. But
yeah, they don't feel like race winning just yet. Maybe
I won't be remotely surprised if he's more competitive than Daniel Dye in that truck.
Yeah, I mean, Dye was a decent driver, but he'd never competed for wins really. So I mean,
no,
it is what it is.
Yep. So we also got news in the last couple days. Casey Mears is slated to start 5 more Cup Series races this season with Beard Motorsports. This all in an attempt, John, to get to 500 career Cup starts. I know you have the exact races he's going to start. I didn't quite get those down.
So
but, it'll be neat to see the old veteran Casey Mears get out. I mean, Beard Motorsports is a competitive car here and there, depending on where they are. So it'll be nice to see Casey Mears go out there and compete and give us some kind of parity in the back end of the field a little bit.
So the Beard Motorsports Casey Mears collab we'll see it first at Talladega later this month. We'll see them at the Daytona Summer Race, the Brickyard 400, the Fall Talladega Race. So that's the 3 big super speedway races in the Brickyard. and he'll finish it off at Homestead, so it'll be a grand finale sort of deal for him. 500 starts at the season finale. For Casey Mears, 2007 Coca-Cola 600 winner.
Nice. Okay. And then one more thing before we get into everything. Per Variety, Dennis Quaid is slated to star in a NASCAR series titled Thunder Road. Do I have that right? Thunder Road.
This is the first I've heard of this, by the way. I knew nothing
I've
about
heard
it.
of AMC doing a TV show for NASCAR in passing. I didn't see a name or any cast or anything, but it appears that the title is Thunder Road, and Dennis Quaid is slated to be one of the stars in that. So I'll be looking forward to seeing what that is. AMC usually puts out some pretty good stuff.
The article noted Dennis Quaid most recently played a serial killer in an AMC production, so it's like, oh, okay. Serial killer, NASCAR legend, I guess.
Yeah, he must be their guy. Well, shout out to him. And so that'll do it for Hot Laps. So now we're going to get into it, John. Let's get our feet dirty, let's get our hands dirty, and let's break this down. So let's start with the race winner, Chase Elliott. So we mentioned before, this is his first win of the season. And we talked about the potential strategy call that brought us to this point, and it was in Stage 3, I forget the laps to go, Alan Gustafson makes the choice, as Chase is starting to kind of bleed spots a little bit. They make the decision that instead of making that final run a one-stop race, they're going to make it a two-stop race to give them the better tires, or however the math works out. We'll break it down a little bit in a second, but Chase Elliott pits. He falls down to just not quite 2 laps down, but he was just in front of the leaders there. And it stayed green right through the cycle, so everybody else had pitted, and he had cycled to the front of the field and was beginning to kind of bleed that lead down, quite incrementally to Denny Hamlin and whatnot. And then I believe he lost the lead to Denny Hamlin. He fell to second or third, and the caution comes out for debris, which I don't know if you have any feelings on this, but there were enough reports that said there was debris on the track, so it wasn't
I had heard it was on pit road, and well, I knew there was some on track because there
was footage of that.
Well, because you saw
caliper or whatever.
Yeah,
or the brake rotor. There was a piece of brake rotor on right dead center of pit road, and you see the guy scooping it up.
Something like 10 to 20 laps earlier, you saw Ty Dillon's car have a bunch of issues where you saw the debris scattering on the track, and I thought that was going to be the caution.
Yeah.
But it didn't end up happening until later. But I also heard that there had been debris on pit road, and even though that seems silly, we've seen in the past that needs to be cleaned up. You can't just leave that out there because for these excuse me, I tripped up over my words. For example, you saw earlier in the race, Kyle Busch hit an errant tire from his pit stall on the way out of his pit stop, and it sent the tire flying towards other crew members of other teams, and we were lucky that it didn't cause an injury. So you can't have brake pads just sitting on the track, or whether it's the track or
rotor
pit
is
road.
probably this damn big.
Yeah,
laying in
you
the
can't. The car's just going to spit that out, or it's going to cause a lot of damage, and it's just you can't have that. So
yeah,
I understand it. I think in the moment maybe I was a little like, geez, that seems kind of ticky tack, but I think in retrospect it was the right call to make.
That's the knee jerk, right? We've talked about this before, where it feels like NASCAR's kind of had that mentality where it's like, especially when you get into those drawn out races like we had, they've had that mentality of like, oh, there's debris, or oh, a guy remotely spun out, put it out. Like give them a chance to catch their breath of the TV to do their thing. But I think this one so that's the knee jerk reaction, but I think this one was fair.
In fairness to them,
I'm personally surprised that they didn't throw it, like you had mentioned. I'm kind of surprised they didn't throw it when the Ty Dillon stuff was happening anyway, because he was pretty slow on track. But we've seen them kind of err on the side of just let it go.
Yeah, and when you look back at it now, you would actually make the argument that they were holding it, because I mean, you probably could have thrown the caution for Ty Dillon. So actually, I think it's. Yeah. I think maybe
I remember watching it, and I'm sitting there with my cousin, and I'm like, man, they gotta throw it. They're gonna throw it, right? They got to. Yeah, I'm like, here we go. They're gonna throw it, and now everything's gonna be a mess. But
So they held it. So I mean,
yeah,
like, it's more consistent than it maybe seemed, at least to me in the moment. But it is right in line with what we've come to expect based on this season. So
yeah,
I give more credit to NASCAR officiating on that end. And as far as the actual decision for Gustafson to get off strategy like that, pit earlier before that caution, it's a great call. It's a great idea, anyways. I know results bias is gonna affect this a
hmm
lot because it ended up being what put him in position to win. But it's a common thing to do. We see Joey Logano and Paul Wolf do this a lot, where they
sure,
have a good car, but not a race-winning car with race-winning speed. Track position is king with this next-gen car, especially at short tracks, even with the increased horsepower. Get in front. We never saw Denny Hamlin really not in control of the race until Elliott got in front of him after the caution came out. So yeah, they needed a bit of luck their way, but man, Will, it was the race winning move, and when you're
yeah,
not the fastest guy, just find a way to get track position. It can make a big difference.
yep. So, with that caution, to kind of further paint the picture before we rip it apart and give it a miserable time. That caution allowed for the 9 team to then minimize their damage. So we see it with these races, John. You need the track position so that you can at least attempt to go win. So instead of being in 10th where they were, the caution comes out. Now you got an opportunity to pit, and everyone else decides that tires were more important than staying out, with the exception of Ross Chastain. So everybody else comes in and pit. So at that moment, at that win or no win, the gamble pays off. The point of the gamble wasn't so much of just like, oh, this is how we're going to win the race. It was, how do we manufacture a way to get the track position to at least be competitive? And that's exactly what it did when you got the caution when you did. It allowed you to come to pit road, and when everyone else does, it was a net gain right then and there. You moved from 10th to the first 3 positions. So there was your gain right there. And ultimately after that, you know, Ross Chastain stays out. You start row 2. Denny Hamlin. To me, there wasn't so much a race winning move as much as it was a race losing move with Denny Hamlin. However he cares to explain it on his podcast, whatever. On television, it appeared that he missed a gear, had a slow restart, and instead of battling the 1 car for first, he's battling the 9 car for second. And as he's battling the 9 car for second, he's losing that battle when the caution comes out again for a feud that we're going to talk about after with, you know, Bubba Wallace and Carson Hocevar. So that whole wreck happens, and it allows the 9 team, instead of starting on the second row behind the 1 car, he's now starting front row beside the 1 car. He beats the 1 car on the restart. We run green to the end, and Hamlin then complains about wheel not being tight or whatever the hell was wrong with his car now that they're in traffic or whatever. He can't get the run that he needs after dominating all day to then pass the 9. We run green the rest of the way, and the 9 team takes the win. Denny Hamlin, to his credit, still walked away with more points than the 9 car. So you may not have gotten the win, but you got a deserving amount of points for how your day went. But Chase Elliott gets his first win, gets that monkey off his back for the season. Hendrick needed that one bad. We talked about it a lot. But as it relates to this move, John, this is why I told you I kind of flip-flopped a little bit. It was a good move, right? But for those of you listening that may not understand the numerics of it or how the balancing of all that works, basically instead of splitting the stage in half by pitting once, you're committing to pitting twice under green, which obviously, John, if we were at a road course, whatever. But at Martinsville, it's a massive risk because you run the risk of going multiple laps down. You fall multiple laps down, and then the caution comes out. You're cooked.
You're done.
Now you're cooked, and the whole thing blows up in your face.
High risk.
Right. So I equate this, if you're listening and you don't understand it all, I equate this in football. Let's say you're tail end of the third quarter, early fourth quarter, you're down by 13 points, and you're right around midfield. You're right around the vicinity where you might consider kicking a field goal. And instead of kicking that field goal, you decide, you know what? It's 4th and 10. We're going to go for it. It's a little risky because it's 4th and 10, and it's pretty long. And the yield, you're not going to win the game by scoring on this drive, but you needed to do something to kind of get yourself back into the game a little bit. And that's what I kind of equate this move to, is like they decided on 4th and 10, early fourth quarter, down 13 points. Not quite, 14 whole points, but it's 2 possession. They said, you know what, we're gonna take a shot here because we're gonna have to at some point start going for touchdowns rather than field goals. They convert, they get the lucky break, they get the field position, and then Denny Hamlin kind of stumbles. That's like getting the touchdown and going on defense and getting the turnover. Right, other quarterback throws you the interception, you take it, you go downfield a little bit, you score, and you run away, and you steal a win. The 9 car. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, meanwhile, the other side of that, like you said, is you go for that 4th down. Not only do you not get it, but the next play you give up a 1-play touchdown drive,
right.
And then you get the ball back, and it's like, well, now you're down 3 scores. So
exactly,
that's
the level of success, the chance for that to succeed and work out for them to just get the track position, let alone a win, was a lot smaller than the percentage of that to kind of blow up in your face. And instead of finishing 10th, you finish 15th or later. I think they said their math kind of had it where if it didn't go their way with the cautions or whatever, they were probably going to net right around there, maybe a little bit of a gain, but ultimately, they pulled a Dan Campbell, man. They went for it when maybe it wasn't the craziest decision of all time. Otherwise, we would have seen more guys do it, I feel like, right? If this was like
probably.
the bona fide, if the math had made it the most bona fide way to go win this race, I feel like we would have seen more than the 2 cars that I saw do it.
Yeah, the SVG being the other.
SVG.
Which, by the way, that guy, and I'll talk about him later, but for that guy, I know he has a top 10, I think maybe top 5 at Atlanta this year, but as far as non-drafting ovals, he has 2 11th place finishes right now. That guy,
he's putting it together, man.
I just feel bad because it's like, man, he's really earned a top 10 both here and at Phoenix, but he's not hasn't been rewarded yet, but it's coming. So
he's definitely you're seeing the gains. It's starting to happen. It's starting to be visual now.
Someone said he realized that Martinsville is just 2 hairpins and short straights, which
they've said
funny.
that before, that like the shifting and the braking is what allows road course racers to like Martinsville so much.
Yeah, although that didn't really work last year,
that's
though.
One of his.
Last year was a struggle.
Yeah.
It could be the cars, and that's certainly plausible, but. In any case,
it's always the car if you're Kyle Busch.
It's always the car when it's not good.
Always the
right?
car.
Although in his defense, I do think RCR's cars are just dog shit. But
yeah, if we're gonna comment on Kyle Busch, this whole blaming the next gen car thing, I'm kind of overhearing that.
He's just tired. He's just sick of it.
He's won plenty of races in this generation car.
4.
It's their lack of speed, man.
Yep.
They're not fast. They're slow.
I mean, Richard Childress himself said midway through, I think it was after Dover last year, he's like, we got to get faster cars.
Yeah.
Well, who's the guy that could do that? It's not Kyle Busch. It's not Austin Dillon.
First admit you have one, I guess.
Well,
although that doesn't seem to.
They'll get right on that.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, as to what we were talking about before, this is big for Chase. I think Alan Gustafson's getting a fair amount of credit for this win. I think Chase Elliott deserves some credit too, because he had to do a bit of racing there at the end, fending off Denny and kind of weaving through lap traffic and kind of doing his thing.
Which is something that we haven't seen for a while at Martinsville, by the way. The increased horsepower probably didn't work the way we wanted it to just yet. But one thing I have noticed is you're not catching the back of the field and you're just getting stuck as the leader. You can still lap cars. It's difficult, but you can do it. And navigating through that traffic is something that we haven't seen much of. So that's a tough skill. So, all the credit in the world to Chase and, Denny Hamlin earlier in the race for being able to do that. It's not easy. No. It's all part of short track racing.
So before I get into the hate of Alan Gustafson or the whole discussion around that, I want to get into another thing that kind of took place that more or less was a catalyst for this, and that was the Bubba versus Hocevar deal. And I know we're gonna rightfully bury him later, but let's see. So
I have to say, so it was less than 100 to go, because I actually stepped away and missed the end of the race. So the caution where Elliott, I had seen the caution where Elliott had stayed out, and the caution fell at the right time, and I'm like, wow, that's going to be big for Chase. He's going to have a chance to win the race now. And I stepped away, and I actually didn't manage to get back till after the race ended. And I had checked our fantasy thing, and I saw Bubba Wallace was like second to last. I was like, what happened to him? He was like 13th all day. So then I see the replay, and it's like, wow, it looks like he just plowed through the 77. I wonder, they said he misjudged it. I'm like, well, I mean, he
That's
definitely
the understatement of the day.
Well, I was like, he definitely misjudged it, but like it seems like a bit more like maybe the initial contact is misjudging,
Seems like
but
he
then
might have meant it.
but then he like drove through him and did the old. I mean, we've done that plenty of times in the old NASCAR video games where you just you hit him, and then now I'm gonna just turn him and get away. Except there was a car in the way, and he plastered it and ended his day. Which
Well, he didn't hit him flush either. He caught him halfway, across
Very
the
strange.
back end of him.
very
Almost right
strange.
into the quarter panel. Look, man, we've talked a lot of compliments on Bubba the last few months because they've been that good. But I think we got old Bubba back this past week. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the emotions got the better of him, right? He didn't like the way he got raced, whether it was fair or not, which I didn't see a problem with it personally, with the way
No,
Hocevar ran
not
right
not
there.
in that instance. I think
No,
I think a lot
but-
of people will probably say that Hocevar's had something coming, and that's probably true. But I can't tell you if there's something that happened before that. But what I can say is that I'm not surprised someone tried to do something to Hocevar, but it was the manner in which Wallace tried to do it, basically immediately, recklessly, and damaging his own race and point standing in the process was just stupid. He needs to be better than that. And
Yeah.
I thought maybe he had gotten past this, but maybe not.
At least not this week.
Oh well, he's got to learn quickly then,
Yeah.
because it's
So
going to be a
that-
lot harder
that
for him to
kinda-
get up. I was just going to say it's going to be a lot harder for him to get back
it's
up
gonna
to
be
third.
a lot harder. We're gonna see that with the point system this year. It's gonna be a lot harder to work your way back into that conversation than it is for you to fall right out of it by having a moment like this. And he's had 2 weeks in a row now like this.
Yep.
But I know we got rid of the winning into the Chase thing, but I think we're gonna see how much of a big deal winning races is gonna be because of the point differential now. It's not gonna be like the Tony Stewart, Carl Edwards tie where Tony Stewart wins a bunch of races and ties with it. If you win half the races in the Chase, you're going to be the champion. It's just the bottom line. So anyway, that was kind of the catalyst for the Alan Gustafson decision that ultimately paid off. And Alan Gustafson rightfully is getting a lot of love this week, John. But I do want to riff for a moment on, everyone seems to think all the Chase fans just hate Alan Gustafson and want him to eat lead paint and disappear forever. And
That's a new one.
I don't think that's fair. I don't know. I just I improv that one. But I don't hate Alan Gustafson, and you and I have talked about this for a
We've
while.
talked
So
about
I'm
him
gonna
plenty
go ahead.
over the years.
I'm gonna go ahead and speak for level-headed, non-Twitter addicted Chase Elliott fans, and say that I don't hate Alan Gustafson. And I don't necessarily think that he needs to be let go. Now, we had this discussion last year, John, amongst ourselves, about how I wasn't completely against Alan Gustafson being removed from Chase Elliott's crew chief. Not necessarily getting fired, but I did feel like that maybe there was some potential that if there was a change there, it would inspire a little bit of discomfort with Chase or the 9 team. And maybe that's what they needed to kind of find that, shall we say, dominance, right? We don't see the 9 car leading a million laps like we might have 4 or 5 years ago. We don't see them winning 5 races a year right now. It's early. He could still, hit that number. He's certainly running well enough right now. But I think I think for me personally, I think the hard part is that, and John, you can maybe attest to this being a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I view Alan Gustafson like the Mike Tomlin of NASCAR. He's a very good crew chief.
That's a very good analogy.
Yeah, if someone turns around and lets go of their crew chief tomorrow and Alan Gustafson is out there, that would be my first call, right? You'd be silly not to. But it's hard as someone who's been a fan of Chase now for over 10 years, and this pairing has been together for 10 years, to see that kind of decline a little bit from what we saw in 2020 and 2021 to what we get now. And it's hard for Chase Elliott fans not to get frustrated because there are some instances where they're not taking the chances that you want them to take to try and go get wins, where they play it safe, right? We see it with the Steelers. They win 9-10 games a year. But when have we seen them really kind of be the dominant team and be the one where you're like, man, they're going to go win a Super Bowl, right? It just, I mean, it hasn't happened a lot recently. So then you're kind of like, okay, great, Mike Tomlin's a great coach, but when do we strive for more, right? And I think that's kind of where we sit as Chase Elliott fans, at least me personally. I like Alan Gustafson, and if Hendricks says this is our guy through and through, that's the guy. I'm not gonna sit here and say the guy should just quit and disappear and change his name or whatever. That's insanity, right? Like he's a very good crew chief. But there are times when I wish he would do things like he did in this race, where he says, you know what, we're sitting sub-10th. I'm tired of sitting sub-10th. I don't want to finish 10th place and be all like ho-hum and like, oh great, we finished 10th. Let's be happy. Great points day. Hoorah. I don't want him to think like that. I want them to think like, what do we got to do to take this 10th place car and give ourselves a chance to win this race? And it was a risky move, and it paid off. And I like that. I like that they were able to sit down and go, you know what? We don't want to just be the steady Eddie 10th place guy. Hendrick hasn't been winning, and someone needs to kind of step up and be the one that does something different that gives them an opportunity. And that's what they did this week, and I want to see more of that from them. Because that shows me that it's not about just going out there and Chase Elliott, because you and I have talked about it as well. Chase Elliott doesn't pass a million people on track, but that's because he's just really good of maintaining a good car in a good spot and not making mistakes to go further down. But we don't see the aggressiveness that allows them to kind of maybe move a few spots up from maybe where the car should be. So then because they don't do that, the Alan Gustafson thing gets a lot of heat because he's not coming in there with the fastest car every single week. They don't qualify particularly, at least in recent years, they hadn't qualified particularly well. I think we've seen an improvement on that. So no. Speaking for Chase Elliott fans that are sane, that are here on planet Earth, not typing on Twitter, do not turn around and fire Alan Gustafson tomorrow. This is what he's capable of. Let's inspire him to get more aggressive so that, yeah, it's not going to pan out all the time, but at least when it doesn't pan out, we can say, well, they're trying to win races and not just exist here. And I'm curious if you agree with that logic at all.
I do, and I do want to mention something they were talking about on the teardown. Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi were talking about is that you may not need to lead 1,000 laps in a season to win a championship this year, and that may be true. Now that may technically not have been true before, just because you had to lead in certain races, but I think there is something to the idea that yes, wins are important, but you don't need to be leading 1,000 laps to win 5 races, as Chase Elliott has done twice in his career. So I definitely think could be something to that, and if this is the kind of stuff that if Allen can pull out this kind of move 2 times a year, I think it could make a big difference if they do this again sometime in the chase. It could really change the complexion of how the chase unfolds, and it could put Chase in a spot where he could win a championship if you make a gutsy call like this and it works out. So yeah, I agree with you, and I just wanted to highlight a couple. I pulled up some stats while you were talking to kind of illustrate the difference between, because Alan Gustafson has been the crew chief for Elliott since day one, correct? I mean, not correct. 2015, but since he was full-time, right?
Since he was full-time, he has been the guy that has crew chief that team.
So with that being said, there's 10 full-time seasons prior to this year. If you look at the wins, Chase Elliott, well, I guess if you include this year too, Chase Elliott just won his 5th race since 2022, which was the first year of the next gen. You remember, Will, he won 5 races in 2022, tied for a career high and the most in NASCAR that year. He's won 5 races since then. Yes, there was an injury and a suspension, but he's only won 5 since then. That's a long time with only a handful of wins. Do you want to venture to guess when Chase Elliott's last pole position was? To kind of expand on what you were talking about with how
it would have been when there was a rain out at one point.
So he had 3 poles in 2022, right? Mm-hmm. But if you want to go back even further than that, do you want to know when his last pole was prior to 2022? And I need to check this too because
Daytona 500 maybe.
I'm going to check that right now because it would have been in the.
He won 2 in a row, right?
So this is
his rookie year.
Tell you what. Chase Elliott had a pole at Phoenix, which I believe would have been the last race before the COVID shutdown. So that, to my knowledge, because I think Darlington was the first the first race after COVID, but for Elliott,
Darlington a lot after COVID started.
They did, but Elliott had 1 pole in 2020, 0 in 21, 3 in 22, and hasn't had one since. So I'm just you talk about starting position being important for that 9 team. It has a big effect on how often they've been up front. So
and I would say to what you were kind of talking about before with the whole 5 wins thing, I think the other important thing to remember is now we've seen Chase Elliott win 3 races, and William Byron's won 2 since Kyle Larson has last won a race. Right? That seems to be. Since he's won. So Kyle Larson has seemed to be the measuring stick for everyone at Hendrick Motorsports at this point. And to his credit, he did win the championship fair and square. But since his last win last year at Kansas?
I think it was Kansas, yeah.
Kansas. Chase Elliott had one at Atlanta. He won at, I think Vegas. He won the second Kansas race. Or was it Vegas? I thought it was the second Vegas. Kansas race. It was whenever Denny Hamlin wiped out Bubba Wallace.
It was Kansas because Hamlin won Vegas, so you're right.
Yeah. William Byron won Martinsville and one other race, I forget. And now we just see Chase Elliott win again here at... Yes, thank you. And then Chase Elliott just won here at Martinsville. So it's gotten better, I think. Right? It's not like we've seen our Chase Elliott win of the year, now we're never going to see one again unless he gets lucky. Like you mentioned before, if you find a way to kind of finagle your way into a win without dominating like you do today, you do that twice in a year, and then you are good enough to dominate 1 or 2 of those. All of a sudden, you're looking at 3-4 wins. Now you're in a championship conversation, right? Not very many people get 4 wins on the year. It's not that common, and I know we've seen Tyler Reddick do it already, but point being, for what we've seen from Chevy so far this year, Chase Elliott is higher than those guys in points, and I think he kind of was before the win. And now with the win, he's definitely higher. He's the highest Chevy in the standings as of right now. So I think this is big for them. And if you're still out there making hate on Alan Gustafson, telling him to disappear, we can end that, because I think we're seeing that aggressiveness kind of slowly build back up. I think the Hendrick drivers are 1A, 1B right now. And honestly, you could probably make the argument it's 1A, 1B, 1C. Because all 3 of them are really good, but Chase is the one with the production right now.
I think the one thing you can't argue is that the 48 car has become a glorified R&D car.
Yeah. So, real quick, we don't have to get too deep into it because we mentioned it already, but Allgaier winning the O'Reilly race at Martinsville, which was quite calamity-filled. That's 3 of his last 4. It's his 3rd on the year. Real quick, I just want to ask you, John, he's obviously the favorite to win the championship. Is there anyone close right now?
Not right now.
That 7's doing?
Not right now, but it's a long season. They only have 3 fewer races than the Cup Series. I think at some point Sam Mayer is going to pull himself out of this malaise that he's been stuck in. I think both of those Haas factory team cars are going to play a part in this. I think Austin Hill and Jesse Love are going to be competitive like they always are. And I am curious to see what the likes of a Corey Day, Carson Quapple, and Sammy Smith can do. I'm not that sold that anyone from Toyota, and certainly obviously not Ford, can make a championship push right now. But no one can touch him right now.
No, I don't think so. He's obviously the favorite. And speaking of this, let's say, for argument's sake, he does remain the favorite and he goes on to win a championship. That's going to bring us into our next topic, our next little bit of a point of a debate here. It's been quite the polarizing topic on the NASCAR community this week, and that is the Hall of Fame. So, obviously, we talked a little earlier about the Hall of Fame nominees that got mentioned, but last week, during an episode of the Dale Jr. Download, producer Travis Rockhold made a hot take.
Became the most infamous man in NASCAR Twitter that day.
He certainly did, and I have my own opinions on him when he comments on either Actions Detrimental or Dale Jr. Download. But he, for those who aren't aware, he made the comment that drivers and NASCAR personnel of the lower series, such as the O'Reilly Series or the Modifieds or the Truck Series, probably shouldn't be considered for Hall of Fame distinction due to the fact that, as they stand right now, they are the lower series. And so, and John, I have a pretty good idea of where you're going with this, so I'll go ahead and get it started, and I'll lay the table for what's been said and what I think. So, Actions Detrimental this week had a discussion about it, and obviously I don't agree with a lot that Denny says, but I completely agree with their kind of take on the Hall of Fame as it came out in the episode on Monday. For me, I don't completely agree with that opinion, but I see where he's coming from, right? Because you and I have had this debate as it relates to other sports, and we could talk about this particular topic for hours, right? And we have in the past just talked for hours about how silly the semantics of the name of the award or whatever it is, the Hall of Fame, what that means in terms of what qualifies for being a Hall of Famer. So as it relates to NASCAR, the thought is, at least as it comes from Dale Jr., that this is meant for all the most impactful people of our sport, and NASCAR is this overarching thing, right? It's not as cut and dry as baseball or football, where in NASCAR you have the Cup Series, the O'Reilly Series, the Truck Series, so on and so forth. And as it sits right now, John, and I think you would agree, right now you would look at O'Reilly and Truck and ARCA as AAA, AA, single A. I think that's fair to say, as NASCAR is right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not apples to apples, but yeah, it's definitely not
right
at the same level.
It's roughly what it's kind of drawn.
That's
up
the
to
closest
be like.
comparison you can make to it that would make sense.
Right. But it's not exactly what those series have been for the entirety of NASCAR's history.
No.
So I don't completely agree with what Travis is saying because these series meant something else back in the day. And when we get into the nominees, we'll kind of touch on that a little bit. But as it sits right now, and look, this is why I only partially agree with this conversation, is that how many times have we talked where we go the jump from going from Truck to O'Reilly to the Cup Series is a massive jump, right? We're seeing it with Connor Zilisch and his growing pains right now. There's a complete and utter massive difference between the talent pool in the O'Reilly Series versus the Cup Series right now. So I understand the idea that your Hall of Fame is to represent the best of the best. It is the elite company of your best in the sport, and so right now you have a hard time selling modern people that someone coming out of the lower series, when they dominate the lower series, should be in the Hall of Fame, because you're essentially trying to convince these people that someone that dominates AA baseball should just make the Hall of Fame. And like you said, it's not really apples to apples, but that's kind of the frame of mind that people are in when they hear that thought process.
That's what a casual viewer is going to think.
That's what a casual is going to think. And you have to be careful about just putting anybody in for having good achievements, because everyone can be great, but the Hall of Fame is meant to be the tippy top of the pyramid here. And so I kind of agree with the way Actions Detrimental had put it on their episode this week. And if I'm not going to go into an extreme detail, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. I kind of had this thought, and then I heard them say it, and it kind of reinforced it. I don't think Justin Allgaier should be a Hall of Famer, even if he does win another championship. Personally, I don't. It's nothing against him. And he's done some good things in this sport, and I understand he's had an impact at the O'Reilly level. But I don't think that makes him a Hall of Famer, because to me, and again, folks, the Hall of Fame is an objective thing. They don't have to agree with what we say because they vote on it. It's their thing. They vote on who gets in, and whoever they vote is a Hall of Famer. And there's just, it is what it is. But I personally wouldn't put in someone. I like Justin Allgaier a lot, but for what NASCAR is right now, to dominate at that level, to me, doesn't mean you should just be immortalized as a Hall of Famer. However, if you want to, I think there's something to be said for the Hall of Fame is also a museum. And I think the museum is a magnificent place to recognize great achievements like what Justin Allgaier is doing. Like what we see, guys winning crown jewels. Like, we're not going to put a guy in the Hall of Fame because he won a handful of crown jewels just on its own, but it's certainly something worth recognition. So I'm sure you feel differently, John, but for me personally, I'm like 65% with the majority on who gets voted in, and I'm like 35% with what Actions Detrimental and what Travis Rockhold is saying is like, we need to be able to, and you know me, I like the idea of having a criteria. You need to hit a criteria to make the Hall of Fame. Don't just vote a guy in because we think he's deserving, but it needs to be there, right? The proof needs to be there that he should be there, that they should be voted in. And I can see how we can be reluctant. Look, if you want to make these lower series guys nominees, knock yourself out. But they're probably not going to be my first choice.
So I'll try to sum it up relatively simply. I thought this whole argument was really stupid, not because it's a bad argument to have on the surface, but Travis, it sounds like, is a relatively like a newcomer to the sport, but the whole argument was based on what the Hall of Fame should be, but it's not what we want it to be if that's what you want. Right. It already is what it is, and it's too late to make changes to that. So I found the whole hypothetical argument to be kind of silly from some people who were getting really angry online, especially at Travis, which is like, I'm fine with like talking about it, but some people got really angry, and it's like,
that's
people,
the internet for you.
It is, and people at like on the podcast called him out for it, which I thought was kind of the extent of what it was necessary. But yeah, it definitely got taken beyond that. But I guess I always think about, like it's a museum. I've been lucky enough to see the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. I've seen the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. I appreciate, and one of the things I really hate about the Baseball Hall of Fame is just that they don't have the all-time hits leader, the all-time home run hitter. I'm not saying they need a plaque. Okay, I understand that Barry Bonds and Pete Rose, especially Pete Rose, have their issues that have kept them out of the Hall of Fame. But if it's a museum, I want to see the all-time hits leader. I want to see NASCAR's all-time winner. Yeah, I don't care if it's, and Kyle Busch is going to be a Hall of Famer, but if it were Jack Sprague, for instance, who's on the ballot, if he was the all-time Truck Series winner, even if he wasn't in the Hall, I'd want to know this is the guy that's won the most truck races. Yeah, I appreciate that aspect.
It's part of the history. It's worth recognizing. There's no doubt. That's why I say, look, you want to make these folks nominees, 1,000%. Make them a nominee, because what I like about having people as a nominee is it allows you to go, I don't know who this person was. I'd like to see, it can inspire you to go, I want to learn more about these people because they're in the Hall of Fame ballot, and you learn more about it, and it might open your eyes to actually agree with why they're there. But I mean, I think for me, it's just, it needs to be exclusive, because if you just Like you hear Dale Jr. say all the time, and I don't know if you agree with this. He looks at it and he goes, "Everybody on this list should be a Hall of Famer," and it's like, okay, but you don't want to ruin the exclusivity of it, you know?
I guess. I don't know. I always felt like exclusivity was overrated.
Look, personally, it doesn't really matter to me because it's just it's an objective thing, right? The NASCAR Hall of Fame is it's an object. Like you don't. There's nothing. It's for the people that you put in. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Right.
But I just
like
I always,
putting Jack Sprague in the Hall of Fame is not for me, and that's okay. And if I go to the Hall of Fame, like you just mentioned, I'd love to learn more about some of these people. Right? There's a place for these people to be there to be recognized, so that, or like you said with the baseball thing, your all-time hits leader doesn't have a presence at the Hall of Fame. That doesn't. It doesn't jive.
It more or less completely invalidates the whole thing
right.
to me.
It makes it a farce, and I think that's the thing. When you talk about a Hall of Fame, you don't want it to be a farce. You want it to be the elites of your sport. I think NASCAR views it differently, and that's okay.
Well, that's the problem.
Look, they can vote in that's why I said they can vote in whoever the hell they want, and it makes no difference to me. It's their Hall of Fame. It's not mine.
Well,
it's not for me to say.
That's the problem, though, is because it as much as it is similar, we can point out how it is similar to AA, AAA baseball. It is not the same because, especially now, and this might not have been as much the case, in the 90s and 2000s, but it's definitely more so the case now, is that it's not a meritocracy. If it was, Corey Haim would have been full-time in Cup 3 years ago. I mean, this is... We're talking about a guy that's still not full-time and just had the best Truck Series season of all time. If he was full-time in the Truck Series, how many races would he have won by now? He's already won a race for a team that was like 30th in points a year ago. So that's
he might
where...
do it again.
And he might. And that's where it's like... It's hard. How do you equate that? And
right.
On another point, like you said, the series have evolved. So the juxtaposition to the Jack Sprague thing is... Okay, I can make a good argument for him because he won 28 races in a short amount of time and won 3 championships. However, who was in the series at that time? Travis brought this up too. A bunch of failed Cup drivers, like Joe Ruttman, who didn't really do much in the Cup Series, I don't think. Mike Bliss, who didn't have a long tenure in Cup. I'm just looking at some of these other names. Rick Crawford, who is a bad person. Anyways, point aside is like the Truck Series was different then. The then Busch Series also changed because you had a bunch of Cup guys bushwhacking. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is a 2-time champion in the now O'Reilly Series, but he's won 8 races across all of his years competing there, which it doesn't seem like a lot, but also he was facing Cup drivers every single week. So how do you contextualize all that? I think at the end of the day, to circle it back to what you were saying, Cup should take the most priority, but I would have someone like Justin Allgaier in the Hall of Fame. So I would have him in the Hall of Fame because I feel like he's been the best full-time driver in that series for a consistent stretch, at least as long as I've been kind of rewatching, with the exception of last year. I feel like he's been the best. And someone that I would not have in the Hall of Fame is Matt Crafton, not because he didn't accomplish a lot. He won 3 championships. However, he only won 15 races in 25 years. And I think like 2/3 of his race wins came in like a 4-year span. So the whole rest of the time, what was going on? I mean, Corey Haim won 13 races last year, 12 races. So
12.
And I would argue Corey Haim is not a Hall of Famer right now, but that's only because he's just started. No. So it's very layered, it's nuanced. But the problem is it's not going to be argued this way because it already is what it is, which is why I was
right. They're not going to be able to differentiate. I think for me personally, I hate it when it becomes this isn't just the NASCAR thing. This is across all awards and sports.
Smearing people.
Not even the smear. Like, obviously, I don't care for smearing people. I don't want to bring down Justin Allgaier for everything he's done because he's done amazing stuff here in the sport. The thing that drives me crazy is when it becomes this semantics deal, right? In the NFL, the MVP needs to go to the most valuable player. Because I'm sure when they invented the award, they didn't give a damn about giving it to the best player in football in the season. They just wanted to give it to the person with the most value, right? I hate when we do that. So, like, you hear some shows this week, and they're like, well, it's the Hall of Fame, so we should give it to someone who's had the most impact. And it's like, come on.
Cletus McFarland. Welcome to the Hall of Fame.
Right? Like, oh, let's just give it to them. Like, come on. Like, we don't need to take things so literally, right? It's like in football, if we had the most, the Offensive Player of the Year award, or if we had that NASCAR, what are we going to give it to Daniel Dye because he was the most offensive human in the sport? Like, come on. Like, the semantics thing drives me crazy. The Hall of Fame, everyone knows what it's meant to be. And as long as the people who vote on this stuff take it seriously, then I can give it the same credit that they're trying to give it itself. It's just... This is where the debates of it become crazy because, like you said, they get so hostile. They want to tear everybody down and, this person shouldn't get in because of this or they shouldn't get in because of this. Like, it's not that necessary. Also, real quick, before we go over the nominees and then make our own selections on who we think should be in, how do you feel about the two and the one? How do you feel about the criteria of theirs?
I like that a lot because
you do like that?
There's no shortage of candidates. Right?
Sure.
Like you said, you can nominate a bunch of people. I admittedly don't know a ton about a lot of these guys.
We'll get into a little bit. I have a couple just flyby stats for you. So we'll get into the modern era ballot, and we'll pick two from that. I think it's two from that.
And one from the Pioneer.
Yeah.
And you have the Landmark Award.
So for the modern era ballot, we got Greg Biffle, which obviously
pretty self-explanatory.
Yep. But for those who may not know, he was the 2000 Truck Series champion and the 2002 O'Reilly Series champion. And I don't have the exact win counter for the Cup Series. I think he's got right around.
He won 19 Cup races.
15 to 20.
19 Cup races. I think 20 O'Reilly races and 17 Truck Series wins in 83 starts.
Before this year, before Corey Heim, as you just mentioned before, he was the one that held the record for Truck Series wins in the season.
The other, that's correct. And the other thing I was going to mention with about Heim is I noted last year that Biffle is the only driver going into last year that had a better win percentage in the Truck Series than Corey Heim because he had 17 wins and 83 starts, which is like off the charts. Yeah. So
anyway, we also have Neil Bonnet, who's won 18 Cup Series races, including back-to-back Coke 600 victories. If you know anything about Dale Earnhardt, you've heard about Neil Bonnet. Tim Brewer, who is a two-time Cup Series championship winning crew chief. Jeff Burton, most people will know Jeff Burton. He's won 21 times in the Cup Series, including 3 Crown Jewels, Southern 500 and 2 Coke 600. A lot of people have brought up him as being that second name, and a lot of people have pointed to his work in NASCAR after retiring as a driver, that being the head of the driver council or whatever. You have Randy Dorton, who was an engine builder that won over 9 championships across the NASCAR National Series. Ray Elder, that's a name that Dale Jr. has brought up a lot. He's a 6-time ARCA Series champion, and we talked about the differences in the series now. It's the ARCA Series West now, but it's important to understand that that's not quite what it was then.
It was K&N and then Busch, I believe.
You could essentially call it the Cup Series West of the time.
Oh, you're talking about that, yeah.
Ray Elder. That's so when you take this into consideration, don't go, oh, he's just an ARCA champion. Cletus runs ARCA. That doesn't mean anything. That's a much different, like you mentioned, it's a much different series.
Even more evolution than the Truck and O'Reilly series we were talking about earlier.
So bear that in mind. But that's Ray Elder's a 6-time ARCA West champion. Ernie Elliott,
I had no idea
Bill's older brother.
I had never heard of this guy, and then I saw a picture of him. I'm like, wow, that's definitely Bill's uncle or brother.
It was a family thing. It was a family ordeal back in the day. It was him and his brothers and his dad just building cars and racing. So Ernie Elliott, self-explanatory. He's a Cup Series championship crew chief with Bill Elliott back in 1988, including 2 Daytona 500s and 2 Southern 500s. So he's one of the first. He's one of the people on the ballot for the first time. Kevin Harvick, this is the one everyone feels like is going to be pretty automatic, and I think that's fair.
Yep.
The 2014 champion, He won the '07 Daytona 500. He won 2 O'Reilly Series championships, and obviously he's got 60 Cup Series wins. That speaks for itself. I think he should be automatically in. You have Randy LaJoie, who is a 2-time O'Reilly Series champion, father of Corey LaJoie, who we mentioned earlier in the show, and the 1985 NASCAR North Tour champion. I want to say that's modified. Don't quote me on that. I think that's a modified championship. And you have Jack Sprague, who you mentioned before. He's a 3-time Truck Series champion. So those are your modern era ballot members. And
All
then
right,
on the
real
Pioneer
quick,
ballot.
Real quick,
go ahead.
I want you to pick 2 that you want in and the 2 that you think will make it.
The 2 I would want in personally is. So let me just get this out of the way. Kevin Harvick should get in right away.
That's the layup.
Kevin Harvick's not my favorite driver of all time, but this is an easy choice. If you don't
sticks
vote him
out
in
like
now,
a sore thumb here.
If you don't vote him in now, you're being silly, right? Then you're just a prisoner of your rules in terms of how you vote in Hall of Famers. But he's obviously a Hall of Famer. So obviously Kevin Harvick's one of them. But if you're letting me pick 2 I would want in, I would say Greg Biffle or Ernie Elliott personally. Obviously, Elliott fan. I understand Ernie Elliott probably won't get that vote. It's his first time on the ballot. But shout out to him getting it. The person I think they're probably going to vote in, I feel like they're going to vote in Greg Biffle because it's a
I think so
posthumous
too.
thing. I think it'd be the fair thing to do. But I mean, if you're gonna tell me I have to vote who I think is the most deserving, I would probably go Kevin Harvick and Ray Elder. I think that's personally where I would go. You can make it obviously Kevin Harvick's the layup. If you told me you were gonna do Ray Elder, Jeff Burton, Greg Biffle, Neil Bonnet, I would say those are solid picks. You're not wrong in doing any of that, and that's nothing against these other guys. I don't know enough about Randy Dorton. I'd love to learn more. Same thing with Jack Sprague, 3-time Truck Series champion. You mentioned it before, where we land on that. And Ernie Elliott, obviously. Yeah, I think the thing with Ernie Elliott is that not enough crew chiefs kind of get a lot of credit on some of these deals.
It almost feels like them and the engine builders need their own category too.
Right, and that's
like
why I
understand that
Randy,
they can't, but
Randy Dorton might be the most deserving person on this list. I just don't know enough about him, and I think maybe he's just a prisoner of the time.
Might have been,
We just don't know. So yeah, I would go probably Kevin Harvick and Greg Biffle.
I would too.
Or Ray
That's
Elder
what
here.
I would do. I would do those 2, and that's who I think will get in. And then I guess if I were to pick someone else besides that, it would probably be Elder, maybe Sprague, or Dorton, maybe. But like you said, there's not enough information about that. So,
yeah.
What about the
and
Pioneer
look,
ballot?
the other thing to remember too is that when they go and vote on this thing, there's a lot of campaigning involved. So a lot of these guys are on the list because someone within that committee is like saying, "Hey, this person deserves to be here. This person deserves." So most of these guys are probably going to get someone campaigning for them to get in, and rightfully so. So I'm not going to hold it against them if they do something different than what we just said. But
outside of
like Kevin
Harvick not
Harvick's the
getting
layup.
in, outside of that,
Harvick needs
there's
to
no
be
Bill
the layup.
Belichick situation here.
No. So in the Pioneer ballot, you have Ray Fox, who is the 1956 Mechanic of the Year. Didn't know they had that award. And a 14-time Cup Series winner as an owner, including a Southern 500 win.
That's cool.
You have Harry Hyde, who is the 1970 Cup Series championship winning crew chief. And if you don't know about Harry Hyde, John, we talked about him in our Circling Back series earlier
Days
this
of
season.
Thunder.
The inspiration for Harry Hogg and Days of Thunder. He's basically one of the pillars of what's gotten Hendrick Motorsports to where
I was
going to
say, you see what you're wearing there? That's in part because of Harry Hyde there.
Harry Hyde was a big part of the whole birth of that team, as it were. You have Banjo Matthews. I have here he has built cars that won more than 250 Cup Series races and 3 championships. That sounds like a hell of a resume, and I've never heard the name before, and I love the name, and I'd love to learn more about Banjo Matthews. You have Herb Nabb, 2-time Cup Series winning crew chief, or championship winning crew chief, and he ranks 3rd all time on crew chief wins with 92. And you have Larry Phillips, a 5-time NASCAR Weekly Series national champion. There seems to be a lot of winning in those 5 right there. It's crazy that those guys aren't or like pioneer based on those stats just right there.
I don't have a ton of info on these guys, but I'd say just Harry Hyde is
That's
the one that everyone
that's the
knows.
problem.
But if not, I'd go with Herb Nab because the numbers don't lie.
Yeah, if you're talking crew chiefs, it's Herb Nab, Harry Hyde. I mean, you could put both of them in, and I'm not gonna hate it. Like I said, I'm familiar with the Harry Hyde story, so I would like to see that happen. Banjo Matthews, you see that number jump off the page. Building cars that won. There's not enough credit to the guys that build the cars.
Nope, underrepresented.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about it, right? Unless someone tells us about these people, we don't know who. I couldn't name a single car builder in NASCAR right now. It's just.
I know the Hall
can't.
of Fame should
And
talk about him. That's a great idea.
That's what it's there for, right, John?
Indeed.
But that's the sad part. They could vote in Banjo Matthews tomorrow, and looking at those numbers, I'm like, yeah, he should be there. Who is he? Tell me about him. like this is where the sport's lacking. But
By the way, names then were way cooler. You had names like that. You had Fireball
Richard
Roberts,
Brickhouse.
Dick Clank, Dick Brickhouse. There's a lot of
Dick
people
Trickle.
named Dick in NASCAR's past.
Yeah.
Not
Anyway, before we get flagged on YouTube, yeah, if I had to pick one there, I personally would probably go, like you said, Harry Hyde, Herb Nab. You go with any one of those five guys, I could see it. Those numbers speak for themselves with all of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the Landmark Award.
What is this, by the way? Can you explain the Landmark Award to me?
So the Landmark Award is it's kind of like an achievement in progression or in ingenuity or things like that. Like we've seen, I think last year was the guy that I feel terrible. I don't remember his name, but it was the person that developed the safer barrier. It's kind of things of that nature. It's people not in the driving and the racing aspect that kind of developed or have done something in the sport. Maybe it'll be a little more self-explanatory when I explain the people on this list. But it's just, I don't want to say it's the Walter Payton type award, but it's in the vein of it's an award for an achievement within the sport that's helped progress it. It's helped made a positive impact on the sport in certain ways.
We can run through these quickly.
Yeah. So and I'm not even going to give you a guess as to who should get it because I just don't know. But the five people up for this award are Alvin Hawkins, who is NASCAR's first flagman and helped establish NASCAR racing at Bowman Gray Stadium, along with Bill France Sr. We have Lisa France Kennedy. That's pretty self-explanatory. She's the executive vice chair of NASCAR and obviously one of the France family folks that deserve to be recognized. Dr. Joseph Mattioli, the founder of Pocono Raceway. So there's him. You have Les Richter, a longtime NASCAR executive who helped oversee competition and helped grow the sport on the West Coast. And T. Wayne Robertson, who held dual roles as a senior vice president at R.J. Reynolds and president of the company's sports marketing enterprises division, which helped oversee the creation of the Winston.
I hope the doctor wins because Pocono Raceway is goated.
It's basically our hometown track, more or less. My hometown track, more or less. But it's that of Watkins Glen. So yeah, shout out to those five folks. I'm sure any one of them deserve to be in. I don't know what the criteria for them voting on these folks are, but I would like to hear the story on the Alvin Hawkins deal, right? NASCAR's first flagman. Like, they tracked that thing? Like, okay, good for him. That's cool. First flagman and helped establish racing at Bowman Gray. That's a story I'd like to hear, honestly. So, real quick, John, because I know we're running a little bit long. That summarizes our Hall of Fame debate. So, folks, again, be nice on the internet. You don't need to tear down everyone because they don't agree with your Hall of Fame thought. Be nice. Let's recognize the folks that deserve to be in there and celebrate the history of our sport. That's ultimately what it's there for. So,
yeah, don't bully people online for their sports takes. You bully them online for their politics. That's how it's done. Please detect my sarcasm here.
Yeah, April Fools, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into some. Oh, actually, real quick, let's talk about the points. Let's get back into racing a little bit. We talked about the points impact this week. Chase Elliott, we mentioned it earlier. He's up to 4th place. He's now the highest Chevy on the list. Above him are Reddick, obviously, Ryan Blaney, and Denny Hamlin. So the top 4 are all race winners. Something to keep in mind. Some other big movers. Ty Gibbs continues to climb the board. He's now up to 6th. He's 131 points behind the leader. Let's see. Some other big movers. Chris Buescher went down a few spots, and we talked about it before, and I'm going to get into it in a minute. The Bubba Wallace situation. He loses 8 spots. He's now tied with a couple guys for 8th, which puts him at 11th. Joey Logano has re-entered the playoff conversation, as has Shane Van Gisbergen. So those are your... And Cindric continues to move up a little bit. He's right now right around the bubble. So those are your big-time movers in the Cup Series. In the O'Reilly Series, obviously in first place, John. You guessed it, Justin Allgaier with a pretty commanding lead over Jesse Love, Sheldon Creed, Austin Hill. All those guys are floating around each other there in the top 4. Not a ton of movers this week. The big one was Brandon Jones was up 3 spots into 8th. Sam Mayer, Roger Cruz dropped a couple spots themselves. Anthony Alfredo has entered the bubble conversation. He's up to 13th now.
Both of the Viking cars inside the top 13. That's
Yeah.
really impressive
Well, look,
so far.
They've had speed, man. They've had a lot of speed so far. Parker Retzlaff in particular has been really quick. And as we mentioned in last week's episode, the one to watch right now is going to be the Brent Cruz situation, because he's missed a few races given with his age. He's 280 points behind the leader right now in 21st. It'll be curious to see if he can kind of work his way into the discussion here by the end of the regular season. So that's those are our points recap. Now, John, let's get into the fun part. Let's do some first class. We'll keep it quick for
All right,
folks.
I'll go quickly. I have Shane Van Gisbergen.
So what do you got, John? Go ahead.
We were talking a bit about SVG earlier, and just that his progression on the ovals has been really impressive so far. And yeah, he finished 6th at Atlanta earlier this year, but he's now finished 11th at both Phoenix and Martinsville, and he scored 8 stage points this past weekend at Martinsville. And he also had a 14th place finish at Darlington, which last year it was a big deal if he had a top 20. So the fact that in the 4 non-drafting ovals so far, he has 3 top 15s is a really big deal, and he scored stage points in both stages this week. Big deal for SVG. I wanted to highlight that. He is my first class this week. I want to see him continue that at Bristol in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. My first class of the week, John, is kind of a quieter name. It's Sammy Smith.
That's who I picked.
Sammy Smith has quietly been a top 5 O'Reilly guy all year long. With the exception of his 1 DNF at Atlanta, he's gotten 33 stage points in 7 races. And if you take away his DNF at Atlanta, his average finish is 5.2-ish? Yeah, 5.2. That's pretty damn good for a guy that's people consider to be 3rd or 4th best at Junior Motorsports. He's continuing to put good points days together, right? While some other guys get into it, you have the Raja and Jesse Love ordeal. They've been pretty steady, and they're going to be right there in the conversation. It seems like that guy. He's real. Considering where he was this time last year at Martinsville, where he had that incident with Taylor Gray. This is a nice little turnaround for him. So my first class is Sammy Smith. Now we get into the ugliness.
You want to do me a favor? Can you go first on this one for me? Because I'm pulling up some numbers for my argument here.
My return to sender. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Bubba Wallace had a great start. We've done a lot of boasting on him this year because he's done some great things this year, and up to a certain point he was second in points. But this week he found a particularly old school Bubba Wallace way to take himself out of the conversation of contender for the championship, because it seemed, at least on the surface level, he let his emotions get the best of him. He didn't really love the way he got raced. He got put 3 wide, got past, and then decided he just airmailed. He claims he completely misjudged the corner. It looked to me like he completely meant to punt the 77. I mean, completely punt him. It spirals into this wreck that ultimately gets Bubba taken out of the race, and now we find Bubba Wallace finishing in the sub-30s for a second race in a row, which puts him way down in the points, down to 11th. Not where they want to be. That's not what you want to do. That's the Bubba old. We need that Bubba to go away, because I like top 5 Bubba. I like that driver that kind of ho-hums his way to a top 5, he's going to find ways to win more races if he just lingers in that area more often than not. We're seeing what his teammates perfectly capable of doing in the same equipment. You didn't need it, man. You didn't need it. You didn't need to tank the 77 and ruin a bunch of cars and waste your day, because you got nothing out of that race. It was a complete waste of time. And now, like you mentioned earlier, that climb to get back up there is going to get a lot harder. As we start to space out more, the climb is going to get a little bit harder, but it's going to be a lot easier to just drop when you have a day like that. So my return to sender is Bubba Wallace.
So my return to sender is going to be something that's kind of popped up over the last few weeks, and really it started kind of last year, 2 years ago. It's the number of laps that are being wasted under caution, specifically at short tracks, and especially at the end of stages. There have been an inordinate number of laps wasted just running under caution while commercials are running. It's not acceptable. It's not okay to be missing this much time just so that we can see live pit stops. I'm not sure what the solution is, Will, and I'm sure we can talk about this more at another time, but it is not okay to me for the 2 stage cautions that were in the O'Reilly Series race. It took a combined 23 laps, which is, averages to 11.5 caution laps per stage end. That's ludicrous. I understand it's Martinsville and that you tick off laps really quickly. If you watch a race, Will, from 2003, it takes less than 2 laps. It's like 1 lap that everyone gets, gathered back in, and then the next lap, pit road is open.
They're pitting. Yeah.
It's not acceptable. This is stupid. And in the Cup Series, it was even worse. They ran 29 laps under caution. And this is the tough part, Will. This is probably the biggest reason I want stage cautions gone above anything else, is that if there's a caution that comes out close enough to the end of the stage, they'll just run it to the caution. And I get why they do that, because it feels very artificial to just say, oh, the stage is over, we're awarding points now. Because what if someone blows up, let's say they throw the caution 2 laps before the end of the stage, someone blows up under caution, because that happens sometimes. It's rare, but it does happen, and that affects how the points are distributed. I don't like that. So I think NASCAR would be best served getting rid of stage cautions for that reason, but I understand why it's really frustrating when it's like, okay, now we're just going to run more laps under caution. Stop. It's stupid. We're wasting too much time. So I'm 100% returning to sender stage cautions, and specifically the laps they're wasting running under caution at the end of these stages. It's taking away from more green flag racing.
Yeah. I think that's because you know me, I've been kind of on the fence with that whole ordeal, because I've been to a race without stage cautions and seen how that played out, and I spent a whole day to witness the fastest NASCAR race in our lifetime. But again, that's just a nutshell one. But for me, I think where I kind of sway to your side is where it's not only are we spending a lot of laps under caution, but those laps are counting towards the next stage.
Yeah.
Which seems insane, right? We're talking
because stage 2 is always really short.
You're talking about 10 to 15 laps of stage 2 just for nothing, and that is a little bit annoying. I don't know if freezing the field and not count, like someone suggested, maybe not counting the caution laps. I don't think that's the answer either.
Yeah, I mean, at least for Cup, the races are already like long enough as it is. We don't need to make them longer. At least lower series, I could kind of get that. But.
Yeah, I would say, I think you need to go back to at least recognizing that this is a track dependent conversation, right? Like you mentioned, it's easy to get blown away by the numbers when we're at Martinsville and you're spending 11 laps under caution at Martinsville. But like you said, it's not super necessary. But I think we're not obtuse to why these cautions are what they are, and it's the opportunity for these television networks to go to commercial, full-blown commercial. Yeah. Because as we're seeing with Fox this year now, anytime it's a green flag commercial break, it's a side-by-side. And I don't know how much the people that pay to put the commercials on care for that, but I'm sure there's a certain element of they say, well, we have these guaranteed spots where we know we're going to be under yellow and we can get the cautions out. Like you said,
it's a tightrope.
do we necessarily have to be live for the pit stops? And I think that's probably the place to start trying to wean off of this problem, is saying, okay, while we're away at commercial, again, race dependent. It depends on the race, and it depends on like you said, the stage cautions. It's not going to bother me if I miss 36 cars pit for 4 tires and fuel at the end of stage 1. It's not the end of the world. I can live with that. And if you want to tell me afterward, or if you want to show me a highlight of something that happened, or tell me afterward if someone did something differently, knock yourself out. But
we get notified on Twitter or other social media faster than they can show us anyways, or like if they were to do that.
Yeah, you can more or less, if you have like the NASCAR leaderboard up, you can more or less tell how it fleshed out before you see it on television.
Yeah, so I don't want to say you don't need it, but it doesn't feel as important now as it did 20 years ago.
It's certain. I think it's the place to start for me. I wouldn't jump straight to no more stage cautions at all. I certainly would start to how do we minimize how long we're sitting under yellow, how many laps, because sometimes it does feel super long, and it's not necessary to run 20 laps.
They ran 17 laps under caution after stage, I think, 1 in the Cup race. I mean, that's what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to be the one that can fix all that, but it's certainly something that you want to narrow down, because as someone who watches races, I would like them to be shorter. As someone who goes to races, I don't want to necessarily see my races get shorter, because when you go there, you want to have a full day experience, and it doesn't bother me if cars are on track longer on a day I've taken off of work to go all the way out to a racetrack, but you're never going to win that battle to please both people. It just isn't going to happen.
The fan who says you can fix everything would say, get rid of the stage cautions and make the cars harder to drive so they can blow up into each other like they did on Saturday.
As if it was so easy, right?
As if it were so easy, right?
But it's never that simple.
Of course it isn't.
But
no.
Hey, there's a lot of people that work for NASCAR that get paid a lot of money to figure out these problems that we don't get paid to figure out. So
they sure do. One of them is up for the Landmark Award.
You heard it from John here first, folks. We know how he feels. I love it. I like that we got a little fired up on today's show, John. We got to pick a lane a little bit instead of riding the fence the whole way. I like it.
It's fun, man. It's
not?
fun. So what? Speaking of getting
so, do you want to
up,
debate the playoffs then?
Well, we don't have enough time, unfortunately.
No, I know. I'm joking. So real quick before we close out, John, let's talk about our race picks. Let's get into it. So going into this week, it was 4-2, me leading over you. You got the win last week due to your race winner. This week
I was very frustrated. I was very frustrated because you picked the guy I wanted in Cup and he ended up winning.
Thank you, my man. So obviously, John, you picked Ryan Blaney as your big 3 pick, and I picked Chase Elliott. And spoiler alert, folks, if you haven't watched the race already, Chase Elliott got lucky. There was a caution that should have never happened, and Gustafson made a weird move, and NASCAR handed Chase Elliott the win. In case you didn't know,
I thought they were handing wins to 2311.
Well, they weren't necessarily handing it to them. It's just in the contract.
But now they're handing it to the 9.
It's business, man.
Oh, okay.
Well, they gotta sprinkle the 9 in there somewhere. You gotta keep the fans.
You gotta throw the scent off. This is
when
confusing.
Denny Hamlin wins a race, you need to immediately follow it up with one that people want to see win, because then you're gonna start to lose people if Denny Hamlin just keeps winning all the time.
Oh.
So
this is very well thought out.
the wheel turning now, right? You're getting it. You're getting
it.
Okay. Anyway, Chase Elliott wins. Your dark horse pick was Ryan Preece. He took 12th. Mine was Bubba Wallace. He did not take 12th. He
was right by Ryan Preece at first.
He certainly was, and then Bubba Wallace realized I picked him and decided he was just going to straight punt the 77. Thanks, Bubba. No thanks. And in the O'Reilly series, you mentioned it before, you picked Sammy Smith with a podium finish, a 3rd, and I picked Sam Mayer, who finished 23rd. Now, I don't mean to be obvious, John, but if we're going to go by law of average, if we're going to go based on law of averages, you kicked my ass this week. But
that's true. But last week, I feel like we made a ruling that was about winning is all important, and by that metric, you did win. So I think that's fair, especially because that's who I wanted.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the next time I pick him, it'll blow up right in my face. What are you gonna do? So yeah, shout out Chase Elliott.
We'll give that to you.
Win.
Yeah.
Look, this is what we're not. When we make our picks, we're not picking our average. We're picking guys we think can win the race. Mm-hmm. So why not? At least that's how I approach it. I go by who I think.
The goal is to win, right?
Goal is to win. That's why we're here. Unless you want a full season points thing, I understand how people are. It's all about leading the last lap unless it comes to full season points. Then leading the last lap means nothing. That hurts my feelings.
I was gonna say you definitely you're opinionated on this too, eh?
We're teetering on the brink of
before we fall into that, why don't we get to who we're gonna pick?
Let's make our picks before we say stuff about the playoffs we don't want to say. So we're gonna start with the well, you choose. Your first pick. You could pick a truck. You pick O'Reilly, knock yourself out. Who you like this weekend at Rockingham? Reminder, there is no Cup Series this weekend, so we get a little bit of a break.
This is tough, Will, because there's two really obvious names to pick, in my opinion, and I feel like I can't go wrong with either one. I'll go with Justin Allgaier just because he's been my guy in the O'Reilly Series race. Just because I feel like that's kind of the standard. He's hot right now. I know technically it was an illegal car, but you had the whole Sammy Smith situation last year. So I feel good about JRM right now, and I think Justin Allgaier is going to be in good shape to, if not win, be competitive once again at Rockingham.
Yeah. I think that's the layup pick. I'm not going to hate you for it. I'm going to go with Sammy Smith in the O'Reilly Series. I know Jesse Love technically had this race last year, and then he got DQ'd. I picked Jesse Love twice already this year. I don't want to keep taking some low-hanging fruit. I just gloated about Sammy Smith in our first class. So I'm going to double down on the Sammy Smith, and I'm going to take him to win the O'Reilly race. I'm also going to double down again, John, because I know Corey Heim is in this race this week for Tricon, but I'm going to do something a little different.
What?
And I'm going to double down. I'm going to regret not taking Corey Heim. However, I'm going to double down. I'm Mr. Sammy Smith this week. I'm going to take Sammy Smith again, running in the 7 truck for Spire Motorsports.
He disappointed me in the truck race last year. I had him on my fantasy team. So I'm hoping for you that won't be the same story. Wow, I could not believe that I actually have this open to me.
Here you go. Run with it.
He hasn't won in the one truck yet though. Nah, I'm kidding. I'll take him. That's not that hard.
I was about to go
truthfully
in a pretzel.
Truthfully, the only one that I would consider maybe outside of him would be Carson Hocevar. But for whatever reason, those I feel like those Spire trucks have not. I don't want to say they've been bad, but it feels like something's always going wrong for them. So I'll just stick with the tried and true method.
Absolutely.
Future Hall of Famer.
For those who aren't completely familiar, Rockingham is a racetrack in Rockingham, North Carolina. I believe it's 1 mile in length.
Just a tick over. It's like 1.0 something.
Yeah. It's just over a mile in length, and it's an oval, so it's pretty straightforward.
High banked for a 1 mile oval.
Yeah.
New surface, second year of this surface.
Because they just renovated the place to have NASCAR racing back there. So
Jamie Mack said on socials earlier today that the track is still very fast. He said he did a 50-lap test. Test run in a car, and he said he ran his fastest lap on lap 46. So it looks like fall off is not going to be a thing, so it's going to be balls to the wall. So if you remember, the truck race was a fun fuel mileage race. We don't often have fun fuel mileage where guys are running out, but that we did have that this past year, so I want to see that again.
You can refresh my memory if you can even remember. I'm pretty sure Lane Riggs was dominating that race too.
I believe so, yeah.
I think he won both stages. I don't remember if he ran out of gas or not.
He definitely did. A bunch of guys ran out of gas because it was like Tyler Ankin was kind of like the last guy standing. And it was. We've talked about fuel mileage racing being pretty boring. That was one that was, to me, just because it was like no one knows who's going to run out of fuel. With no cup there, they didn't have nearly as much telemetry. So you had a whole bunch of stuff going on as far as it was like an old old-fashioned fuel mileage race, which I enjoyed about it. But
Mhm.
I'll pull up the numbers here to let you know in a minute here.
So while he's doing that, I'll go ahead and give a shout out to everyone that's continued to support us. Now that we're starting to try and get in a rhythm, we're still working on hammering down the best time to shoot so that we can get these out pretty regularly. If you could follow us on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, we have most of the socials. You can follow our content there. We post as often as we can humanly get on there. Sometimes we're pretty good about posting some stuff, and sometimes not so much. Unfortunately, we don't make money doing this, so we do work for a living. So we do have to find time for this kind of. Yeah, we quite literally haul the mail for a living. So sometimes can get busy, sometimes cannot.
We had a bizarre phenomenon last year where Lane Riggs won both stages, but Corey Heim led the most laps.
Wasn't a short pitting situation, I wouldn't think.
No, that wouldn't make much sense. So it was probably, if I had to guess, it was probably something to do with cautions and when they fell, opting for fresh tires to flip the stage then. That'd be my guess. Sure. But anyhow.
So, yeah, enjoy that. John, it's Easter weekend. There's no Cup Series racing this weekend. So, be a nice little breath of be able to relax a little bit. I do want to make a note that we are not going to shoot an episode next week. So, we will submit our picks and post them online for anyone keeping track of that as it relates to Bristol. But we're going to take a week off. We're going to enjoy the holiday weekend. We might have skipped this weekend, but I felt like we had a couple topics this week that were worth planting our flag in the sand for. So
I agree. One last question: does Cup have another weekend off after this? I think they do, right?
I think in August.
I think you're right. Yeah, because I remembered last year. Last year they went straight through, and it was like, wow, that's a long time. Because I was going to say,
I'm pretty sure they get 2 breaks. They get this one, and the next one would technically be.
Is everyone? I think everyone.
There's a week where everyone's off. Yeah.
I think it might be after Wilkesboro. Right before the Brickyard.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Maybe.
It's definitely later in the season. There's 2 off weeks for the Cup Series, not including the All-Star weekend, but they'll be busy that weekend.
There's still other series like this weekend racing, so that's why that'll be interesting to monitor. But anyhow.
Yeah. All right, so that's all we got for you this week. Like I said, we're off next week, and we'll see you in 2 weeks to talk Bristol. John, you have a happy Easter, my friend.
Same to you and your family, and producer Devin, who, of course, is part of your family as well.
Shout out to Devin Easter on the ones and twos, as always. And we'll see you guys next time on Hauling the Mail.